The next part of the Red Grant application I want to talk to you about is the budget section. Now, we have touched on this when we talked about the cost key question, and it's very much the same. Get quotes for anything that you can possibly get a quote for and attach that as evidence. If you can't get a quote for something, then you need to have a reason as to how you have determined that budget, that item. So how have you come up with that amount for that particular thing? What are your calculations? What are your assumptions? How have you come up with it? Be clear about who's paying for what. So it's not just grant funding. There is obviously leverage funding, minimum 30%. You may have a few different parties paying for different things. Be clear who is paying for what and when, because that is going to be helpful for when you're doing your grant agreement if you're successful. Also know that most grant applications, and REDs are the same, won't pay for retrospective costs. So if you have spent the money before your grant agreement is signed, then they will not pay for that. So you can't be claiming for money that has already been spent. The project may have started as a whole. It might be a really big project. It may have started, but the particular thing that the RED grants are funding hasn't started. You just can't make sure that can't have started, because otherwise it's money you've already spent and you won't be getting it through the RED grant fund. The next section is the market viability section. Now, this section has confused some people in that you do not have to complete it if you're not a business. There are some of the forms where if you have selected that you're not a business, this section won't come up, so you don't need to worry about it at all. But if the section is there and if you aren't a business, you could still fill it in if you feel that it will add to your application. Essentially, with every grant, you don't want to leave unanswered questions. You want to make sure that the assessor really understands what your project is, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, all of those key project questions that we've talked about. You don't want to leave any questions unanswered. You don't want to leave doubt in their mind. So if using this section will help you to explain a bit more and you're able to access it on the form, then go ahead and use that even if you're not a business. But you don't actually have to complete it if you're not a business. So this section is about how you know that your project is going to be successful in terms of the market research you've done, and also how you know that it's not going to impact negatively on other businesses in the region. So if you purchase this equipment and the storage shed, or you form the cooperative, how do you know that the buyers out there are going to buy these products? So you've said there's a gap over east for this product. How do you know that? What have you done research-wise to determine that? If you form this cooperative and you can access, to access all these new buyers, how do you know these new buyers are out there? What evidence have you got? So you should have actually looked into that. If you need help with market research and evidence to back up your projections, if you need help with this, if you need help with your business planning, because essentially this is what this is about. This is about planning your project and your business model. So making sure that the market is there and that you are able to make money from doing this project. If you need help, contact your local business advisory service or the Small Business Development Corporation. Now, they won't write this application for you. That's not what you're contacting them for. You're contacting them for help on the business model. So if you believe there's a gap in the market, but you need to firm up that market research, you really need to look into it, and you're not sure how to do that, speak to your local business advisory service, speak to the Small Business Development Corp, and they can give you some guidance. Because that is something that you need to explain in this market viability section, because there is no point in spending all this money and doing this project to be able to deliver this product over east or internationally if there is no one wanting to buy it over there, or if the price point that you can deliver it at, because you're having to transport it from WA to the east, is going to be too high. So then no one is going to buy it because it's going to be too expensive. The next thing I want to talk about is just some general comments about the RED grant application and the process. So be aware that every question is there for a purpose and you need to answer every single question in the application form. If it's incomplete, it may end up being an ineligible application form and they may not be able to assess it. There is a reason behind every question. These forms have been looked at and gone over 1,000 times They are asking that question for a reason. They want some information from you. Make sure you give it to them. And try not to answer it in a one sentence. Explain, go into detail, give them the background, explain it to them.